It was the religion here in Ethiopia. Ethiopia was the first Christian kingdom in the world. They erased the most terrifying part of the Bible, and almost no one noticed. For centuries, billions have trusted that the Bible they read contains the full story, the beginning, the warning, and the final end of humanity. But what if that ending was never complete? What if entire passages, detailed visions of the last days, were quietly removed before they ever reached the modern world? Just before his death, an Ethiopian monk made a claim that changes everything. He revealed that deep within the Ethiopian Bible, one of the oldest and least altered Christian texts, there exists a version of the end times far more explicit, far more structured, and far more disturbing than anything found in modern scripture. These aren't vague prophecies. They describe sequences, events, a progression that feels less like ancient writing and more like a warning meant for a specific moment in time. Why has the world never heard of this? Why did these passages never make it into the versions read by billions today? Because if what he said is true, then the ending we've been told is only half the story. Before we expose what was hidden, hit like and subscribe, because what you're about to hear isn't something everyone wants you to know. For almost 2,000 years, Christians have been told the same story. Jesus rose from the dead, appeared to his followers, and left behind a message of salvation. But in Ethiopia, very old Christian books tell a far deeper and more terrifying version of what he said, one that most people in the West never heard. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church has one of the oldest and most complete Bibles in the world. Some of these books were never accepted by the Roman Church. They include writings that record exactly what Jesus taught after his resurrection, including a full prophecy about the end times that goes far beyond anything found in the book of Revelation. These old writings were kept safe for centuries by Ethiopian monks who carefully copied them by hand. They believed the words of Jesus must never be lost, especially these words, because these were not words of comfort, they were warnings. In these books, Jesus did not leave the earth without first laying out a complete map of what is coming. He described the final age with chilling precision. He spoke of a world that would grow cold in spirit, where truth would be traded for spectacle, where leaders would wear holy robes while their hands dripped with the blood of the poor. One of the most important of these texts is called the Book of the Covenant. It claims to record the things Jesus said to his disciples in the 40 days after his resurrection before he ascended. And in this book, the end times prophecy is not vague. It is terrifyingly specific. Jesus says the final age will begin not with fire from the sky, but with the slow death of conscience. He describes a generation that will know his name, but not his voice. They will build cathedrals and fill them, but the Spirit, he says, will have already left the building. He warns that false prophets will arise not in distant lands, but inside the very churches built in his name. They will speak of heaven while building empires on earth. He says, "When you see my name used to justify war, to excuse greed, to silence the poor, know that the hour is near." The prophecy then shifts to the physical world. Jesus describes earthquakes, floods, and sky events that will confuse even the wisest men. But he says, these are not punishments. They are signals. He calls them the birth pains of a new age. He says the earth itself will groan and shake because it knows what is coming, even when the people living on it have forgotten. These warnings sound like they could have been written yesterday. The Ethiopian text says, Jesus looked into the eyes of his disciples and said, "Do not fear the shaking of the ground. Fear the shaking that does not come, the stillness of hearts that have gone completely cold." Another book from Ethiopia called the Didascalia adds another dimension to this prophecy. It records Jesus warning his followers about a final empire, a system of power so vast and so subtle that most people would live inside it without ever knowing they were captive. He says, this empire will not use chains. It will use comfort. It will give people bread and entertainment and call that freedom. He says, "Blessed are those who see the cage and still choose love. Blessed are those who are hungry for truth in the age of false abundance." It says, if the end times prophecy hidden in Ethiopia's oldest Bible could still change everything we think we know about the final days, then what deeper warnings lie buried in the world's most mysterious holy book? Let's learn more. The same texts also include a chilling vision of what the final days will actually look like from the inside. Jesus says that in the last age, his voice will rise again from unexpected places, from deserts, from prisons, from the children of the forgotten. He says his spirit will speak through those who are ignored by the powerful. And that the most dangerous truth of the end times is this: the people who claim to be ready will be the last ones who see it coming. This idea turns every comfortable assumption about the rapture and the last days completely upside down. Ethiopia's long Christian history helps explain why these texts survived. The country has been Christian since the 4th century, but was cut off from Rome for hundreds of years. Because of that isolation, it kept a more complete and more mystical version of Jesus' words. In these Ethiopian writings, the end times are not simply a sequence of disasters. They are described as a spiritual war fought inside every human heart. Jesus says the final battle will not be between armies. It will be between truth and the love of comfort, between the fire of awakening and the sleep of satisfied souls. The Ethiopians also say there are 3 main reasons why the Western Church suppressed this end times prophecy. The first is political control. Rome wanted an end time story that kept people dependent on the Church for salvation and survival. A prophecy that said the Spirit of God would bypass institutions and speak directly to the humble and the broken was far too dangerous. The second reason is mysticism. The Ethiopian end times texts are full of visions, angelic counsels, and cosmic timelines that Western church leaders branded as heresy. The third reason is fear, genuine, terrified fear. They feared that if people read these, words they would understand that the end times they were waiting for might already be unfolding all around them. Some of the Ethiopian texts say that Jesus described the final age in 4 stages. The first stage is the age of forgetting, when people slowly stop seeking the truth. The second stage is the age of spectacle, when noise and entertainment replace wisdom. The third stage is the age of the false shepherd, when the corrupt leaders take the name of God and use it as a weapon. The fourth and final stage, the one that makes scholars go pale, is what the text calls the Great Silence. Not a silence of peace, but a silence of the Spirit, when the connection between heaven and earth grows so thin that even those who are searching can barely feel it. Jesus says that just before the end, in the deepest moment of the Great Silence, the fire will return. Not to destroy the world, but to wake it up one final time. But even with those terrifying warnings, the Ethiopian end times texts close with something the Western Church desperately did not want people to hear. Jesus says, the end is not the end of life. It is the end of the lie. He says that what is coming is not destruction for its own sake. It is a cleansing, a burning away of everything false. And he promises that those who chose love and truth, even when the whole world chose comfort and power, those people will not be lost. He says they will be known by their scars, not their crowns. These writings show a vision of the end times that is not about escape, It is about transformation. If Ethiopia truly preserved the forgotten end times prophecy of Christ, then what specific hidden warnings do these sacred texts reveal about our world right now? Let's delve deeper. The old Ethiopian Bible holds end times teachings that make the book of Revelation look like a summary. It tells a deeper, more detailed story about the signs that will precede the last days, the seals that must be broken open inside the human soul, and what it truly means to be awake when the final hour arrives. These writings say that after his resurrection, Jesus shared a layered prophecy that was never recorded in the common Gospels. Ethiopian monks protected these texts for hundreds of years, believing they carried the real blueprint for the end of this age. In these old books, Jesus teaches that the signs of the end times will be misread by almost everyone. He says people will watch the skies for dramatic signs, while missing the true signals happening right in front of them. He describes the breakdown of families, the commodification of love, and the worship of self as the real signs that the final hour is drawing near. He says, the generation that makes gods of its own image, that is the generation that stands at the door. Many people watching this video right now will feel a chill reading those words, because we live in an age of selfies, personal branding, and algorithmic identity. Jesus, according to the Ethiopian texts, saw this age coming and called it by name. Another part of the Ethiopian end times prophecy speaks about what it calls the two harvests. It says that in the final age, two things will grow side by side, a great darkness and a great awakening. This is not the comfortable idea of a world that gradually improves. It is the terrifying and hopeful idea of a world pulled violently in two directions at once. The darkness will grow darker, the light will grow brighter, and the space in between the comfortable, lukewarm middle will disappear entirely. Jesus says to his disciples, "In that day, there will be no more hiding in the gray. Every soul will be called to choose." Before his ascension, Jesus gave what the Ethiopian writings called the 7 seals of the heart. These are not the dramatic cosmic seals of Revelation. They are far more personal and far more frightening. The first seal is the seal of comfort, the refusal to be disturbed by truth. The second is the seal of pride, the belief that one's own understanding is complete. The third is the seal of fear, the worship of safety above all else. The fourth is the seal of distraction, the filling of every silence so the voice of God cannot be heard. The fifth is the seal of false community, surrounding oneself with those who only confirm what you already believe. The sixth is the seal of false mercy, using forgiveness as a reason to never change. And the seventh seal, the one Jesus says is the most dangerous, is the seal of religion itself, the use of holy words and sacred rituals to avoid the living, burning reality of God. He says when a person breaks all 7 seals within themselves, they are ready. They become the fire they were waiting for from the sky. Many believe that this prophecy speaks directly to our time, a world drowning in comfort, a world where spiritual language has been weaponized by the powerful, a world where millions go to church and still feel completely empty, a world that is both more connected and more desperately lonely than at any point in human history. The heart of the Ethiopian end times teaching is both terrifying and liberating. It says, the end is not coming for the world, it is coming for the lie. And those who let the lie go, who break their 7 inner seals and choose the burning truth of love, will not just survive what is coming, they will become the reason the world is worth saving. If Ethiopia's hidden end times prophecy holds this terrifying and beautiful truth, could the land itself be the place that was always meant to guard these final words? Let's find out. Jesus was betrayed, tortured, and crucified to save the world. That is the story told in churches worldwide, passed down for generations, found in Bibles, in artwork, and in stained glass windows everywhere. But another account, one that adds a dimension most Christians have never encountered, has been preserved far away in Ethiopia. Some of the oldest manuscripts kept in its monasteries claim that before Jesus ascended, he gave his disciples something the Western Church left out entirely: a final prophecy, a complete and terrifying vision of the world in the last days. This testimony, known among Ethiopian scholars as the prophecy of the final witness, does not soften the end. It names it. It dates it in spiritual terms. And it describes the generation that will live through it with a precision that makes the modern reader's blood run cold. One of the oldest Christian churches in the world, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, traces its spiritual origins back to Menelik I, the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Ethiopia's faith developed through prayer, fasting, and deep spiritual practice, not through political conquest and empire, the way Rome's version of Christianity spread across the world. Inside old monasteries in places like Lalibela and Aksum, monks kept hidden scrolls and sacred books written in Ge'ez, an ancient Ethiopian language. These writings speak of a Jesus who carried not just a message of personal salvation, but a cosmic warning about the world that would one day crucify truth itself. In this version of the prophecy, Jesus tells his disciples that the final witness is not an angel or a cosmic event. The final witness is a generation of ordinary people who will rise up in the deepest darkness of the last days and refuse to be silent. He says this generation will not be welcomed by the powerful. They will be mocked, silenced, and erased from the platforms and the pulpits of their age. But their voices, he says, will be heard where it counts, not in arenas or on screens, but in the hearts of the people who are ready to hear them. Jesus says to his disciples, "Do not fear if they turn off your voice." Truth. According to Ethiopian theologians, the suppression of this prophecy was not accidental. They believe it was a deliberate act of the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, when Roman-controlled church leaders chose which books would shape Christianity for the next 2,000 years. Ethiopian scholars say this council was terrified of prophecies that spoke of the church itself becoming corrupt in the last days. A prophecy that said the most dangerous false prophets of the end times would wear crosses and build cathedrals was far too threatening to include. So those words were buried, and Ethiopia kept them alive. Whether people see this prophecy as literal history or as a spiritual warning, the message is undeniable. It asks every person alive today to look at the world around them and ask, are we there yet? Are we living in the age the Ethiopian text described? Are we the generation that will choose between the comfortable lie and the uncomfortable fire? The prophecy of the final witness may not appear in any Western Bible, but its message is not ancient history. It feels like tomorrow's headline. If the hidden end times prophecy of Ethiopia challenges everything we thought we knew about the last days, then what makes this ancient uncolonized land so uniquely chosen to guard the world's most terrifying and most hopeful truth? Let's take a closer look. Ethiopia is one of the oldest and most unique countries in the world. Its history goes back thousands of years and is filled with mystery, strong faith, and incredible survival. What makes Ethiopia truly different is that, unlike most African nations, it was never fully colonized by foreign powers. Because of this, the country was able to protect its cultured traditions and ancient religious texts in a way that very few places on earth could. Many Ethiopians believe their roots go all the way back to Ham, one of Noah's sons, a belief also mentioned in ancient Jewish writings. Because of this connection, Ethiopia is often seen as more than just a country. It is viewed as a living link to the biblical world and one of the earliest civilizations in human history. Faith plays a huge role in Ethiopia's identity. Long before Christianity spread across Europe, it had already taken root in Ethiopia. Historical records show that Christianity was established there as early as the 4th century. But unlike in many other regions, it wasn't forced onto the people by rulers or empires. Instead, it was accepted naturally and protected with deep devotion. In the 6th century, a traveler named Cosmas Indicopleustes visited Ethiopia and described it as a strong and deeply committed Christian nation. He even wrote that Ethiopian leaders gave shelter to Christians who were escaping persecution in other parts of the world. Some communities in Ethiopia have followed this faith continuously for thousands of years. making it one of the oldest Christian traditions in existence. One of the most fascinating things about Ethiopia is its Bible. The Ethiopian Bible is considered one of the oldest and most complete versions ever preserved, while most modern Bibles, like the King James Version, contain 66 books. The Ethiopian Bible includes many more, up to 88 in some traditions. These additional books include ancient writings such as the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees, which are not found in most other Bibles today. These extra texts are part of what makes the Ethiopian Bible so important and mysterious. They were written in Ge'ez, an ancient language that very few people can read today. Because of this, much of the world has remained unaware of what these texts actually contain. This includes detailed ideas about the end times, how the world might eventually come to an end, ideas that are rarely discussed outside of Ethiopia. This is why the story of the Ethiopian monk is so powerful. In his final days, this elderly man who had spent his entire life studying these sacred writings decided to speak openly about what he had learned. After a lifetime of silence, he shared what he believed the world needed to hear. According to him, the Ethiopian Bible contains a more complete and intense description of the end times than what most people are familiar with. He described these writings not as symbolic or unclear, but as detailed warnings messages that feel urgent and relevant even today. The Ethiopian Bible itself exists in different versions. There is a broader version which includes more books and a narrower version with fewer texts. In the 20th century, Emperor Haile Selassie officially recognized the narrower version. However, some scholars believe that the removed books in the broader version may contain some of the most important and serious warnings about the future, warnings that could relate to the world we are living in right now. Ethiopia's long history of independence, its deep-rooted faith, and its preserved sacred texts suggest something powerful. While many people think of religious history as centered in places like Rome or Europe, Ethiopia offers a different perspective. It shows that some of the oldest and most important spiritual traditions may have been protected far from the centers of power, in a land that remained unconquered and deeply committed to its beliefs. So it raises an important question. What if there are parts of history of faith and prophecy that most of the world has never fully explored? What do you think about the Ethiopian Bible and the idea that it may contain hidden insights about the end times? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we hope you found this as interesting as it is thought-provoking.